have a look at this week's task, which was album covers. So initially, the task was to look at 5 set albums that I'd picked for you and for you to reinterpret and reimagine those. So you could look at things like the association of colours with things, or light and dark, using collage techniques, and that could be kind of creating artworks or using things to build up, again, to kind of represent what that album is, and also to kind of listen through to that album and see what kind of themes maybe translate to kind of our modern day situation and times. So I've picked 8 this week. Let's dive in and have a look-see here. There's Vanessa's, and again, before we start, everyone took loads of great photos this week, and some that were your own interpretation of different album covers, which I actually think worked quite well. So maybe when I look to do something like this in the future, I'll just leave it up to you to kind of take your picks. I know some people have also messaged saying, I'm not really sure how to kind of go about this. Maybe it was that the album didn't kind of connect with you or mean anything, or it was maybe kind of too literal or maybe too abstract. And again, could have chosen any album, so really, in hindsight, it would have been good to just kind of leave you to your own devices. So there's some of that in here as well, but there's some really nice kind of some ones that you've created yourselves based on those 5 album covers. So first up, Vanessa's. This was for Like a Prayer, I believe. Indeed. And again, so this was the idea that I was hoping you'd be looking at in terms of how can we kind of create almost like a reissue and a new issue of that, or imagine that Like a Prayer was released in May 2020. What would that album cover look like? And I think this is a really kind of clever one, and obviously this has become kind of symbolic with the NHS and thanking the NHS, and it's become symbolic about us all being in this particular moment, and the prayer element, I think, it resonates across everything, doesn't it? It's not therefore about religion in so much, or a particular faith, but it's kind of wishing well and wanting to kind of for people to be well and to get through this, and so I think that's a really kind of just I guess a kind of a very relevant way of attributing that to Like a Prayer. So I think that's a really good shot. Lovely colours as well. I like that it's done with chalk as well. It just adds that kind of, I don't know, just kind of more grit and feeling to it. Good work, Vanessa. Kath. Again, I really liked this as a modern day take on Joni Mitchell's Blue. You'd put there, Joni Mitchell Blue, the sign on the door is like a simile to the heart with a warning to keep clear dare you enter into that person's life. It's brilliant, it really is. You just thought and listened to the album, and as I said in the video, it's such a personal portrait for Joni Mitchell, and you know, the cover of her, the portrait, and then it's kind of blued out, really gives a sense of emotion about what that album's about. And I think you've kind of captured that, even with it just being kind of an inanimate object like a garage door. It's very symbolic, and the sign on it, as well as you say, is that kind of warning to this is what this album's about. So really excellent interpretation there, Kath. Steph's. Now I put this down, you didn't say what it was, but I put this down as What's Going On. because I think you've got this kind of collage of, you know, different expressions almost and colours, and they kind of invoke a certain feeling as well, don't they? And it's a mishmash of kind of, as I say, kind of compositions, and you've doubled up on stuff as well, so there's that kind of mirroring or kind of echoing maybe, and I think that works really well, and it looks like a completed kind of cover, doesn't it? So it's a really nice job, that. Another one, Steph, which you did for Joni Mitchell's Blue, which again, I was just trying to look what that was, but so as mentioned, just think about kind of filters and things. If you're changing something into black and white, or you're maybe kind of just highlighting a red, let's say, or you're putting a tint over something, then it starts to kind of give it a different feeling, and that's what works really well about this, and it really draws out the reflection in the water. I think it's the reflection really that comes across within that, or the self-reflection that comes across within that album from Joni Mitchell, and what better way to do that than having something reflected in water, but then that you put this blue tint on. So really, really good interpretation. I think that's a really good shot. Vanessa again with Marvin Gaye's What's Going On? What's going on? As we were suggesting, how can we kind of look at this as What's Going On is released in May 2020, and we've got Corona. I mean, obviously this is what's going on at the minute, so, you know, obviously, but I think you've kind of composed this really nicely. This has become a new look, and whereas Marvin Gaye was a portrait of himself, we're now kind of looking at the images of people with features covered up, because that's the new kind of norm. It's about safety, so that's really interesting, and obviously you've used a packaging from Corona for beer, which again is quite an interesting take on it, and a good background. Again, it looks like a kind of a finished studio album cover, so you've actually thought about the composition as well, which I do like, so well done on that. And then there's a couple down here. These again were when I'd mentioned about you kind of just using your own imagination to interpret album covers. This is a great one, by John Allen, the Living Room EP. That's quite a nice take, actually. But Out of Hell. So you've got the background actual devil image, which I don't know whether is the original one because I can't quite remember it. But this is quite a famous album cover, so you can see straight away. And it's got the motorbike, but it's actually a wooden carving bike, which I think is very nice. Really nice colours, actually. It looks like a complete image, in so much as I mean that the kind of the background and the foreground are the same thing, but they're not. So that kind of works really well, and I think it does because of the colour, the contrast on the bike, which is great. Nice composition. Again, it could be a finished album cover easily. Bang the text on there and it's done. And Paul, go back and have a look in the photo pool, because Paul's had a great bit of fun going through some famous album covers. Springsteen, Kraftwerk, some really, really, really good ones. And again, it would have been maybe a better way for just to leave you to your own devices and use that. Just leave you to come up with your own take on things. So this is OK Computer by Radiohead. The head's taken out. You've got the computer bit there. I like this kind of the architectural drawings, and whether that's kind of a link to kind of a computer, or is it more kind of symbolic to what the album's about. But yeah, again, it's kind of a nice collage effect, and I think that would work just with kind of maybe you've got maybe the computers, maybe you don't need it written. I think that's maybe kind of, it says what it is, as does this one, which was Beatles Abbey Road. You've got the Abbey Road studio. Well, this Beatle chap he is, I've never seen him before, but where he's just a figure to be on the zebra crossing, and it's done so we can see it's inside. We've got kind of cushions, the carpet, the bookcase there, the rug. So it's quite a clever and quite a funny take on a shot that is, is another famous album cover, but it's kind of been recreated for now and had to be done in the home. So again, that is a kind of another double layer of symbolism on there. So that's really good. And lastly, if I jump back to the photo pool very quickly, skim through some of these so you can see some other ones that people have done. Cats Like a Prayer there, which was really good. Nancy's, Nigel Kennedy. I thought it was Valdi's Four Seasons, but it's another nice one. These are some of the ones from Paul there, and then Guy's done quite a lot. I wasn't sure with some of these guys, so apologies for not including you this week, because I wasn't really sure which ones these were about in terms of the albums, and these some other ones of Paul's AC, Pink Floyd, Springsteen. But I just wanted to, because I couldn't upload this for some reason to the gallery, but I wanted to include this from Brian, who'd sent this for me to upload, and this is his take on Like a Prayer, and he says he gets a different meaning from that album, and for him it was some of the things of the tracks that were related to relationships with mothers, which he's kind of done here. So he's reinterpreted that. I think that works really nicely, and he's even managed to find that, so he's kind of completed that as an album cover and called it, instead of it being by Madonna, it's by Brian. So really like that. Very good lighting as well, Brian. And that's it this week. Hope you are well. Remember, keep sharing, keep connecting. I look forward to seeing where you're up to now with things. It'd be interesting to go back and have a look at the very first images that were uploaded, because they were just maybe more a mishmash of just daily records of our first couple of days in lockdown, and it'd be good to maybe reflect back on some of those yourselves and see what's been different. But stay safe, stay alert, lots of love, see you soon, bye bye.